Hello, everybody. Welcome. My internet is not working, so for those of you who have been in my home, in my living room, you'll know that this is not that space. So I am in another space today so that I can be here with you all, and it's wonderful to see you. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Antoinette, and I'm the host of Women Together. And it's just a wonderful time to connect and be with you all. And my apologies for the echo. It's the one downfall of this space, but it's wonderful to be here with you all and to be connected in our Women Together Connect. And I wonder, for those of you in the Northeast, how many have been affected by the tropical storm that swept through here a couple days ago. I see some hands. Yes, many of us have been without power. If you're not in the Northeast of the United States, many of us have been without power, some without internet. There's been a lot of fun chaos to try and work through, and I'm hoping that everyone is okay and that our community is making through yet another calamity that we're going through together. So a warm welcome to everyone, and as many of you are already doing, you can type directly in the chat and just say hello and where you're coming from today. And if you want to share anything about how you're doing, that's great too. I'll just share a little bit about our Women Together Connect space. We've been doing these Women Together events for the last few years just to be able to deepen our connection with ourselves and with each other. They've stemmed from Eileen Fisher, who is a clothing designer and has been designing clothes for about 30 plus years, 35 years or so. And she realized that while she was designing these clothes that allowed us to feel comfortable and confident in our bodies, that she wanted to go deeper. And so part of this Women Together space has been about going inwards and really feeling a sense of aliveness in ourselves, and then recognizing what can happen when a group of women actually come together. And some of that is about acting and showing up in the world in a certain way, and how we, actually do something. And some of it is just about how we show up for ourselves, how we wake up each morning. And we talk a lot about tiny practices. So Eileen Fisher herself does a lot of tiny practices in the morning and throughout the day. And then throughout the company and the ecosystem, the community, we have been doing a lot of tiny practices to just get back to our center, get back to ourselves, and feel a sense of, what we're doing here in this moment, in this time and space, but also in the world. And so it is wonderful to be able to have these online connections. We were doing them on the in-between of the in-person events. And then during the time of COVID, when many of us were on lockdown and needing a form of connection with each other, we turned to Zoom and the internet and being able to connect in this way. So we've continued doing these weekly, and now we're in a time of kind of resetting our course. We had some of our teachers join us over the last few weeks and months. Some of the other women we love to hear from and who've been doing incredible and extensive bodies of work over years. And we got to hear from them and be with them and kind of settle into to ourselves in the different ways that they brought in for us. And so while we're incredibly grateful for them, we're also thinking about, okay, what's next? And what's next is probably a little bit more of a time of uncertainty. And so cultivating a sense of resilience to be able to handle whatever comes next, because we just don't know. We do not know what September, October, or November will bring. So we are just going to stay with what comes up and kind of find our own course within ourselves. I keep doing this, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that. But Wendy Palmer, who's one of our favorite teachers, she talks about holding power in a triangle or in a circle. And she says that a lot of leaders, when they want to make a point or show something that they want to activate or advocate for, they make a triangle. So it's just something that when you're trying to say something, what is the body language that's actually coming through, and what is the body language that we want to use to make some of that happen. So something to keep in mind, and maybe we come back to that in a little bit. But before we go any further, maybe we just do a first tiny practice together, in which I'll just use the sound of a singing bowl, which we normally have in all Eileen Fisher conference rooms. Today, I will share a sound of singing bowl that just will allow us to settle in for a moment together, a moment of stillness, a moment of silence. And in that moment, if you can find a sense of your feet on the ground, and if you can find a sense, maybe perhaps closing your eyes, steadying your gaze, and just tuning into the breath. And for this moment of stillness, when you hear the sound, perhaps allowing that sound to just carry you deeper in. And just following the breath after you hear the sound. Okay, this might be a little better in terms of sound, I hope. But in the meantime, we will keep just being together in whatever way we can. So, yeah, thank you all for taking that moment of stillness and just reconnecting. We will do a couple more tiny practices and some journaling together before we move into our small groups for those of you who are on Zoom. And for those of you who are on YouTube, welcoming you to share with each other in the comments. And we can share some of those in here. What we'd like to start with is just hearing a little bit of the intention that you might have for today. So what brought you here to this moment of resetting our course? And that could be an internal intention, or perhaps you were here last week and you kind of have something that's carrying over from last week. Or it could be something that's really kind of for the larger community, in that holding space of, as we think about what Women Together means, what is it that you're really hoping to reset around? And I'll share with you just something that I shared last week, which was that a teacher, Tunde Oyeniyan, shared that as we went into 2020, we were hoping for this kind of vision 2020, we were looking to this. And as we actually moved into 2020, it may or may not have been what we thought it would be or what we were looking for. And yet it may have opened up a new level of clarity around things that we needed to see. And now that we see, we cannot unsee. So with that in mind, I'd love for you to just type in, you could journal at first if that feels helpful for you, but then typing in just a statement of what your intention is for coming to this conversation together, for resetting our course as an individual and as a community. So I'll give us a few moments to just jot down some thoughts, and then I'll read a few out from the chat. So I'll just read a few out, and if you haven't yet wrote one in, that's okay. There are a few though already here, so thank you for that. So from Janet, my intention is for greater consciousness and compassion. I'll just read a few of them, and if you're in the Zoom, you can look at the names, and if there are YouTube ones, I'll read a few of those as well. So we've got learning to stop, breathe, and be present. Encouragement to really notice and feel love for my life and all around me in the world. Connection, centering, reinforcing my peace and serenity. To gain more clarity. Wanting to chart a new course for my career and life. Caring for myself and crafting my own path while caring for those that I love. Our interconnectedness is sacred. My intention is to respect and honor that others are in a different place. I get impatient. Creating a new place, a new path from a place of joy, and allows me to bring joy and happiness to others. I felt this was one of the first times that I felt more accepting and comfortable with discomfort and so many fears. I want more of that, and this is grounding. Beautiful. These are really powerful, just to take a read through and to sit with what is ours to do. And a lot of it is finding the center within ourselves so that we can do whatever else it is we need and want to do in the world. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you, Lauren, for sharing. Also, finding a new home for myself and my girls, where we will be in a community that we feel welcome and in tune with the culture. Yeah, there's a lot of shifting and changing in perhaps in our own communities, but definitely in the United States and the world. There's a lot shifting, and it feels like as we can be connected in this way through the internet, we can also see everything that's going on in a kind of macro level all the time. So it's a lot to take in and a lot to kind of consider what is my place in all of that, and how do I chart my course and my path in a way that is both comfortable and uncomfortable, so we can hold what is needed in our world. So as we move through today, a couple of things to keep in mind is that last week we had we did a little word cloud, and I could share my screen to just show it. But we saw some of the pieces that we basically asked, what is it that you think of when you think of women together? And that could mean a lot of things. So, you know, when I initially in my life thought about women together, women coming together, there were times where that felt, yeah, that feels totally right. And there are times where it felt,
not so good, you know, to have women all together and sort of coming at each other and not, you know, making space for one another and things like that. But there's a lot of positive to it too, and it's actually in many ways could be the what helps our world move forward. So here we are with what came up, and what we saw is that this community of, I believe it was about almost two, this was 100 people who came in, but we had about 200 people on the call. And when you think of women together, what three words came to mind is community, compassion, support, strength, power, sharing, sisterhood, kindness, um, wisdom, empowerment, collaboration. So this isn't asking what is the feminine, this isn't asking, you know, what does it mean to be a woman? It's what you think of when we think about women together. And that could be this specific community, but we also talked about in general, because there are still a few things in here. If you kind of sneak in, there are definitely pieces like being left out. And I saw another one, in general cat fight was in there. So yeah, right underneath collaboration, there's in general cat fight. So there's also juicy collective wisdom, compassionate action, heart-centered, humility, humor. So there's a lot that happens when women come together. And last week we talked a little bit about a few different ways that women together as a concept is kind of showing up in our world. So we talked about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and what she shared on the House floor in the United States, saying, you know, that what happened to her is not necessarily one singular experience, that it's something that women face all the time. And so how do we as women have resilience when our culture is not necessarily kind to women or lifting women up or women's way of doing things up? And then we also talked about the wall of moms, which came up here as well. And in the wall of moms, there was,
regardless of our, some audio issues, regardless of how we feel about protests, etc. The Wall of Moms came forward to say that they wanted to care for one another and care for these kids and people who were out protesting as if they were their children, regardless if they were moms or not. So there's an element of this compassion that's kind of within us that we know regardless. And when we can tap into that compassion for our society, for each other, for our world, then we do have a lot more capacity and capability. How about now? Yeah, okay. So what we might, when we think of, I'm gonna just go with the echo and we're gonna just try and make it work. So what I was saying is that the Wall of Moms just shows us what it means to have that kind of compassion and that we can move beyond our own internal world. So Wendy Palmer, she wrote, recently came out with a book called Dragons in Power, and I've been reading and rereading it because it really captures a lot of her most recent teachings. And she came into our Women Together space a few months ago, right at the start of the pandemic, and she encourages us, even when we're centering. She says that oftentimes we think about the breath coming into the body and that we're going to source ourselves. And what she says is actually centering is about going beyond ourselves. Centering is tapping into a deeper sense of interconnectedness. So I'll read just a little bit of a quote from her. She says, centering allows us to connect with our bigger, expansive self and cultivate positive attributes: size, warmth, resilience, connection, knowledge, and intuition. She also says center is a different part of ourselves. It is a state of being, not a place in the body. Our centered self is our bigger universal self. It is the part of us that exists outside our skin. So this is the part that we know is not separate, it's not individual, and it's also not outside of ourselves. So last week we did a compassion practice, kind of expanding out and having compassion for others around us and kind of using breathing as a way of connecting. And we'll do more of that next week with Adriana. But today, if we could just do a little centering practice. So Wendy gives us practices for 20 minutes or 5 minutes or 15 seconds. We'll do a short one today, but just for a moment, getting centered. So wherever you are, if you can get your feet again on the ground. And if you'd like to put your hands on your lap, you can do so. And the big thing with centering, so first we'll just feel a sense of uplift in the spine. And then we're going to just expand our energy out. So right now you can feel I can feel the energy of the Antoinette body, right? There's just energy moving in and out of my body. And we'll just expand the energy and the awareness out to the walls of the room that you're in. Wherever you are, just expanding the energy out to the walls of the room that you're in. Just feeling the difference of that. Maybe thinking of something that makes you smile. And then if you can, just opening the arms out and wide. Just feeling the energy going out the fingertips, just increasing the size of our energy. Wendy says size matters, not the size of our biceps, but the size of our spirit. So just sending that out. And just for a moment, we'll try doing the opposite. So we've just expanded our energy. And now just for a moment to feel the difference. By practicing, we can really learn and gain mastery. So just bringing the arms in, bringing the chin in, tucking the shoulders, just that feeling of being small, just bring your energy in, contract everything, and just noticing that feeling, just reminding ourselves of what that feels like. We know this feeling, right? We know the moments when we have shrunk back. I definitely know this feeling. I don't like it. It's very familiar. So we're going to change it. We're going to lift back up and just center again. Think of something that makes us smile, open out. Extend the breath vertically. Just feeling the difference. Wendy talks about being a little more noble, a little more awesome, and a little more shiny. And just that simple body movement. You can release your arms if you want, but keep that energy expansive. Just remembering and feeling the sense of being connected, being completely interconnected with everything else around us. That we are just as connected to the atoms around us as we are the kind of amalgamation of the atoms within us. So just feeling into that and holding that space of interconnectedness. Just remembering what that means and what that feels like for us. I'm going to invite us into some journaling questions. So if you have a journal and a pen around you, I'll take mine out too. If you have a journal and a pen around you, that can really be an important tool. It seems like something small, maybe a piece of paper and a pen is enough. But it can seem like something small, and the work of the hands doesn't need to be creating and creating and creating. While that's wonderful, and I really want to get back to making masks with a sewing machine and things like that, the work of the hands can also be putting the pen to the paper and moving from this kind of mental place through the embodied experience that we just had and then getting things down on paper. And once they're down on paper, they're a little bit more real than when we just thought them that one time. So I'll invite us into a few journaling prompts. And the journaling prompt will be, I'll give you 7 of them, and I'll just give you space in between each one to free write, and I will paste them into the chat just in case you missed it. So the key to journaling is keeping the pen to the paper and seeing what comes out and not judging it, just continuing to let it flow. So the first question is, where have I been an independent woman? So that could mean a lot of different things. I'll let it mean whatever it needs to mean for you. As an example, maybe for me, living alone, there was a kind of independence and strength in learning to live alone. So where in my life have I felt a sense of being an independent woman in a strong, powerful way? And the second question, which is now also in the chat, is in that same breath of seeing ourselves as independent women, there's also a sense, perhaps, of a point in your life where you have not felt like you were enough. So where have I seen myself as not being enough? And it could be enough anything, but just enough, good enough, strong enough, powerful enough for, but where do I see myself, or where have I seen myself as not being enough? When you've jotted down a couple of thoughts for that one, when is a time when I might have enacted my own self-doubt onto someone else? And I'll give a concrete example for this. So there's a project that I've worked on, and when I felt like I didn't do a good enough job and I'm kind of being really self-critical, I might take it out on one of my coworkers who may have done something that's really amazing, and I'm like, oh yeah, that was okay, and actually what I'm doing there is enacting my own, or I'm projecting my own self-doubt onto her. And I think we do this sometimes unconsciously. So just for a moment, turning the lens back onto ourselves and just seeing, when might that have happened? Maybe that's not exactly what happened, but when might I have projected my own self-doubt onto someone else? It's not always the easiest one to stay with. So we'll move it back out with what is my aspiration for myself? And that could be as an independent woman, but generally, what is my aspiration for myself? So as I move forward, if I'm thinking big and I'm having a vision for myself, if you want to make it a little more complex, you could think about it from a few years from now, looking back at this moment and just kind of be in the present with that. So the year is 2025 and I have become or done XYZ. So what is my aspiration for myself? I'll give you a few minutes for this one. So we know that the idea of putting the mask on ourselves first, although putting a mask on has taken a whole new meaning. But I'm talking about the one where we used to go in airplanes and put the mask on ourselves before someone else, if the oxygen was needed. And so now that we've thought about our own aspiration for ourselves, thinking about what is my aspiration for women, and it could be all women, women in general, perhaps women in your community. But what is your aspiration? What do I hope for all women? And the next question, with that in mind, maybe with the last three things in mind, what is it that I can do? How might I lift up other women around me? So just considering, maybe there have been times where I've enacted my own self-doubt. Maybe there are times where I've lifted other women up. Maybe I'm moving towards my own aspiration. What is it that I can do, or how might I lift up other women around me? And that could be concrete, something physical, tangible, or it could be mental, emotional. So how might I lift up other women around me? And just to kind of add on to that one, what might women together have the capacity to achieve? So as you think about how you're lifting up other women around you, now we're expanding out to this kind of larger community of women together. And it could be this platform of women together, or it could be what, when you just think of what women together could mean and look like, what does that actually have the capacity to achieve? What is possible when women come together? So now that you've taken a few moments to journal these 7 questions, hopefully you have some thoughts that you can carry forward for yourself. And we will turn to each other and really get a chance to practice number 6, which is how might I lift other women up around me? We will turn to each other in small groups and really take the time to sit with each other. And we'll do that for about 15 minutes. And in that 15 minutes, we'll just make space for each other to speak, recognizing that I've said this one before, that we might not know what the other person in front of us has had for breakfast, let alone the rest of their life experience. So really just making space to see this person who's speaking at their highest potential, holding curiosity and compassion and all the things that you would want someone to hold for you, giving each other the gift of listening. And we'll try to let everybody speak in that time, so maybe 2 minutes each, or letting everybody go once before anyone speaks twice. And we'll come back together in 15 minutes to just hear what came up. So enjoy your time together. If you're on Zoom and moving into small groups, if you're on YouTube, it was wonderful to be together with you. And hopefully you can either get into Zoom now, or we'll see you next week, where we'll be joined by Adriana. So enjoy your time together, and I'll see you in about 15 minutes.